Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Lukemick here, as always, and it is finally time for another Criterion Marathon. It has been since January of this year, my first video of the year since I posted Criterion Marathon number
7.
which was a banger, and I don't know exactly why it's taken this long to do another one. For those of you who have not seen a Criterion Marathon on my channel, if you're a new subscriber this year, obviously I haven't really posted these videos this year. Essentially what I do is I go to my Blu-ray shelf, go to the Criterion section, Criterion Collection section, and I pick out 3 films that I think would be good to watch that I have never watched myself before, and I'm basically offering up my first reactions, critiques, questions I have towards the films that I'm watching, so they're not very in-depth, expert-level analyses of the films. They're really just my reactions and my first impressions of the films that I choose to watch, and that's basically what you're going to get in this video. So I'm going to pick out 3 films, and this is the first time that I have started the morning and not known which films I'm going to watch. I don't even have a short list. I have a long list of films that I could potentially watch for this video, and I have not decided yet. So once the camera is done rolling here, that's when I'm going to know which film I'm going to be watching. Obviously, you all know which films I end up watching because of the thumbnail, but I'm in the dark right now. I don't know what I'm going to watch exactly. So I'm just going to let my mood and my emotions and feelings guide me today. Usually I'd have it set up pretty nicely where I get a pretty diverse group of films that I think pair well together, but today I'm just, since it's been so long, I need to get back into the swing of things. I'm just going to watch exactly what I feel like I want to watch at that exact moment, and we'll see where it goes from there. But that's pretty much all I have to say for this introduction. Enjoy the marathon, everybody. Okay, so the first film of the marathon is now behind me, behind us, if you look at it that way. And here it is here, maybe a little bit out of focus, maybe not though. Before Sunset, Richard Linklater, the second film in the Before trilogy. Now, I chose to watch this film. It's a sequel. It's kind of weird to watch a sort of random sequel for Criterion Marathon, but let me explain my way of experiencing this trilogy. The first film, Before Sunrise, I watched probably 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, and I liked that film. I really liked it, and I kind of told myself that I want to experience the passage of time between these films kind of the same way that Celine and Jesse would. And so I told myself I'm going to wait a while before I watch the sequel, Before Sunset. I had to look at it because I almost forgot which one this was. And then, of course, Before Midnight being the third and final film, another film in which I have not seen. A film now at this point I probably won't be watching for several years. I wanted to set myself up with this sort of gaps between time that the characters and even the film crew and everyone involved with the film felt between making these films, because they took place over, I think, the course of 18 years is when this trilogy was being released, 95 to 2013, I believe. So I am happy to continue viewing these films that way. So that's just a little over-explanation tidbit about how I am watching these films. And I will say, well, what will I say? What should I say? This second film is in 2004. Jesse and Celine have not seen each other since the original film, the first film, 1995, which ended, I believe, with them at a train station, if I'm not mistaken. They were going their separate ways, and they had plans to meet up a couple months later. That never happened, and in this film they cover that failure to meet up later. Sorry if I'm rambling, by the way. It's been a while since I've done this, and I'm just trying to find the right things to say about this. I feel almost exactly the same way I felt about the first film, in that I really like it. I think that the directing and the dialogue is all very naturalistic. I think that the performances from Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy are completely authentic. They created these characters, they helped write the script, which I think is really helpful because they're the ones talking the whole time. They have these incredibly long scenes of dialogue without cutting. It's just so crazy to me. I wonder how much of it is improvisational, because they go so long and the way that their conversations flow into one another feels so organic. And I should watch some of the special features and hear about their writing process and their acting process for these films, because it feels so incredibly realistic. Their conversations, the directions they go in, their even and this goes down to a performance level, the facial tics within them also give you just more layers of how these characters are feeling, the emotion of these characters, and how they're reacting to each and every word being said by the opposite. So I think that on a technical level, there is just so much going on with the writing and the acting in these films that I really commend, and I respect it a lot. I feel I like the characters a lot, but I don't feel like I'm not in love with them. I'm not in love with these films. Like I said, I really like them. I think they're really well done. I enjoy watching them. I think that there are a couple of moments where they feel a little bit slow, and some conversations just feel, I don't know, not as impactful as others. But that's life. Not every conversation is going to be a thought-provoking, highly important conversation. And these films and this one, all of them, I feel are going to feel kind of the same, capture that beauty of conversation perfectly. I think that's kind of all I really have to say about Before Sunset. Really great to finally jump into the sequel to Before Sunrise. Now I'll have to wait a number of years probably before I watch Before Midnight. And then after that, if I ever want to rewatch the trilogy, I think I could safely just watch them all back to back if I wanted to. But I'm going to continue my own cinematic time experiment of waiting before watching the films. Not as long as their theatrical releases, but putting some time between them and let them sink in. And something I will also say about this is that it has been several years since I watched Before Sunrise. That's the first one. Since I watched Before Sunrise, and I definitely forgot things about these characters. Very early on in this film, Julie Delpy, Celine, mentions her grandmother and how that is essentially the reason why she was not able to meet with Jesse a few months after their initial meeting. And Ethan Hawke's character of Jesse knew exactly who her grandmother was. He remembered every detail that he learned about her grandmother the night of their first meeting. And that's something that as a viewer I totally forgot about. I was like, oh, I totally forgot that she had a grandmother and that she was an important figure in her life. So I would definitely also, I think, get a much different perspective of these films if I did watch them back to back and have all of the details of their lives fresh in my mind. Being 3 years or 4 years since I watched it, I definitely forgot details like that. So yeah, interesting films that I think can be experienced in quite a few different ways, and I really respect that. I wish I loved it more. I wish I was able to just latch on to these characters and their relationship more and just feel more engaged and more passionate about it. But I don't exactly, but I like the films. I think they're really good. I enjoyed watching it. I appreciated that this was a brisk 80 minutes. That was nice. Oh, and something else. Speaking of the 80-minute runtime, I don't think the first film did this. I think the first film covered an entire night. It spanned maybe like 8 hours. That's a rough estimate. And the film was obviously not 8 hours. It was like an hour and 40 or something. But this film pretty much runs in real time. He has a very tight schedule. Ethan Hawke has to get to the airport so he can fly home. He has to fly home. And he's given like 30 minutes basically to spend with Celine, but he ends up prolonging it, and the film moves in real time, which I thought was also really interesting because it honestly felt so natural that way. And I don't think the first film did that. This one does that, and that was really cool. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Before Sunset. I had to double check the name again once more. I enjoyed it. What do you all think of this film? There wasn't really much I could spoil here, so I don't think I had to warn anyone about spoilers. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Let's move on to the next film of the marathon, which I also I still don't know what it is. You do, but I don't. So I'm gonna have to take a peek and make up my mind right here to decide what I want to watch next. So I'll see you after the next one. Hi everyone, welcome back. I don't know why I'm saying that. I just feel like I've been away from the camera for a while here. I watched Secret Sunshine by Lee Chang-dong, his 2007 Cannes Film Festival winning film for Best Actress, at least. Very well deserved after seeing the film. That may have been the only award it won at that festival, but very, very deserving. This film is it's a lot. It's incredibly depressing. Everything that happens in this film is sad, almost. I was expecting those feelings and those emotions to come through and be present, but it also did a lot of things that I wasn't expecting it to do. First off, Lee Chang-dong is a filmmaker whom I want to watch a lot of. I want to see all of his films. The only one previously I had seen is Burning, and I love Burning to death. That film affected me so intensely for days and weeks after seeing it. That is an amazing film. I would say I like that film a little bit more than this film, but this is still was not a wonderful experience, but a very engaging in an experience that I'm not going to forget, and one that I'm happy to have had. Now, this film is about a woman whose husband has recently passed away. So her and her young son are moving out of Seoul, and they're moving to the deceased husband's hometown, because that was a dream. He always wanted to move his family back to his hometown and live there. And she's sort of following through with that dream for him. And his original city, is called Miryang, or Miryang. I'm not sure how that's pronounced exactly. And that translates into Secret Sunshine, which is how the film gets its title. And she starts off with her son in this town, gets him set up in school. She knows piano. She's a piano teacher. And Song Kang-ho is in this film, probably the most famous South Korean actor ever. You all know who he is if you watch Korean films. He plays this car mechanic guy who has a crush on her. He's one of the first people that meets her when she gets into town with her son. And basically what ends up happening is that she's having a hard time integrating into this new area, this new neighborhood. The people there don't exactly like her, except for Song Kang-ho, and she is also in a lot of denial about her husband and the acts that he committed before he passed away. And she's still obviously dealing with the death of her husband, and it's still something that affects her son, and she's trying her best to get over the grieving process, but it's not going too well. And something I want to just quickly say before I move any further, I might go into spoilers with this. I'm not going to stop myself from talking because I'm afraid of going into a spoiler. So just know that I'm probably going to say some spoilery things. So if you have not seen Secret Sunshine, I would stop watching this right now and go watch the film and come back and watch this if you so choose, or just go and watch the film, because I think it was a great film. I would highly recommend it, and I think it should not be missed. So if you don't want to see spoilers, stop watching this part. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens in this film and how it made me feel, and how I interpret some of those things. So basically, in the first 45 minutes or so, her son is kidnapped, and I knew this was a sort of abduction ransom story. I knew that there was a kidnapping and her kid was involved And I knew that much. What I did not know is that the son would die so early in the film. And that makes the last almost hour and a half of this film a full on, not lesson, but a full on experience in grieving and looking for answers. And just, it was just such a downer because there's so many things I want to talk about, and this is going to be really unstructured. So enjoy my ramblings about Secret Sunshine. One thing I noticed that made me just really think back and say, God, was it even worth it? Like, that's so sad. Is that the night that her son is abducted, so the night that her son is actually kidnapped, she is out on a night on the town, probably not very far from her residence where her son is, patiently awaiting for her to get home or going to sleep or whatever. But she is out hanging out with some people that she's met, and they're honestly people that one in particular that was sort of shit talking her earlier in the film, and it's so clear that they're people who are hanging out with her just because they have to or because they might have some sort of like ulterior motives. They're not incredibly fond of her and not all that nice to her. There's even a part when their night ends, all of them pile into a taxi and then she's left alone and then she just hails her own taxi and doesn't get a ride with everybody else. So that was already just like a really sad thing to see, and knowing that this was the point of the film when she was going to get home and her son was going to be there, I was just like, oh, this sucks. It's not like if she had a good night it'd make it any better, but like it was already a night that almost felt like such a, not a waste, but it wasn't an ideal night, I guess. And she probably realized that, although she was very accepting of her needing to call her own taxi, but I digress. But that's something I noticed. And the rest of the film, like I said, is very heavily, concerning her grieving process. That's what the rest of the film is about. And something that I just noticed was that she was so alone. The only person who wanted anything to do with her and who was willing to help her and be there for her at all was Song Kang Ho's character, who's a sort of loser character. Although I don't really know what makes him a loser exactly. I mean, it just seems like she was always really annoyed with him just because she was. I didn't really understand why. Her brother plays a role in this film, and he tells Song Kang Ho at one point that you are not my sister's type. You should stop trying right now. So that's kind of how you're supposed to take his relationship with her and where that's going to end up. And it was just so sad because it was like nobody around her knew her. She had become distant from her father and mother, I believe. Her mother-in-law of her late husband hates her or was very upset with her at the funeral for her son. The people around town aren't, like, they just don't know her well enough. They don't know what would be comforting for her. The pharmacist woman across the street gets her onto the Bible and Christianity, which is a whole other arc of this film that I'm going to get into in a second. I just thought about it. I was like, there is nobody. Her brother came by for one night while her son was still alive, and even he just didn't really have much of a connection with her. Her husband's dead. Like, she's literally alone. And now her son, the only piece of her family, the piece of her husband that she had left, is now gone, deceased. And it was just like, oh man, this is really really depressing. Yeah, that's one of the, she goes down this just horrible psychological decline through this film, and I think part of that is that she is just so alone. There is a point in the film where she breaks down at a church. She decides to go to church because the pharmacist lady across the street has been pressing her about it at a couple different points in the film. And she goes and she has like a sort of religious awakening, and everything that she experiences, she always has the idea that God is there, God is present, and God is, the one who is manipulating and managing everything that happens, and she puts all of her faith in God. And that ends up backfiring on her once she tries to go to the prison of the man who killed her son to basically forgive him. And he has already been awakened by God and Christianity himself, and that just wrecks her, and she just starts questioning why does God have the balls, I'll say that, to forgive this man before I was even able to. And that just created so much more pain within her. And once she comes to that realization that this man is now a new, like, born again Christian who has repented the sins that he had committed against her and her son, that he had been forgiven by God, she felt almost stabbed in the back and just sort of thrown for a loop that God could forgive him of his sins before she got the chance to. And that is a moment that really breaks her psyche. And I was not expecting this film to be so heavily religious in some of its themes and content. I guess I should have expected that, being a sort of grieving film, but maybe I wasn't expecting it to be like such a Christian focused. In the end, though, I think that for a while she is able to sort of assimilate into the circles within this Christian community in, I'll just call it the town Secret Sunshine because I don't remember the actual name of the town. She forms a group within the Christian community of this city, and everything feels so shallow from my perspective looking from the outside, because everyone sort of regurgitates the same phrases and the same things, and everyone says the same exact thing. That's kind of my perspective on religion in general anyway, but it felt like such a shallow shell, and just such a fake friendship, almost like a fake connection with these people. And I feel like in the end, trying to find answers through religion for her, I felt just made things even worse. It gave her a sort of outlet, and it gave her people to talk to, but it also just complicated things even more, and she goes on like this almost anti-religion rampage of sorts towards the end of the film too. And I thought it was interesting that the film went in that direction. I did not expect that to be a possible direction for this film at all. And like I said, I don't know why, because it is a film about loss and grieving, and a lot of people turn to religion in those times. So I should have expected that, I guess. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just thought it was interesting and surprising. And another thing I just want to say about the directing of the film in general is that Lee Chang-dong's films, the two that I have seen, are just so subtle, and they're not showy at all. There's nothing overly stylistic about it. It's all very, very just realistic feeling. How can I better explain this? You know that there might be some major event coming up, but nothing with the camera work is going to indicate that some intense thing is going to happen. It's not going to cut to some image. It's not going to move very quickly towards anything. It just stays very still and lets you soak in the scenery and soak in the other characters standing around our central character, played by, and I'm going to butcher her name, Jeon Do-yeon. I'm not very good at pronouncing Korean names unless it's Song Kang-ho, because that one is so easy. But the film just does such a great job of making you focus on her, putting her as the center of what you're looking at, the center of the frame, but then also being able to just look at the world around her and look at the people around her. That's something that I really noticed in this film, is just being able to watch the bystanders or watch the people watching her. Sorry, that was kind of a weird rant and thing for me to explain. I don't know if it made any sense. I'm kind of talking out my ass right now. I think that might be everything I have to say about Secret Sunshine. I wasn't as emotionally affected or invested as I was in Burning. That film, for whatever reason, struck such a chord with me, and I was just gripped to the characters in that film, and this film too, but just not as much. It was a less severe case of stress, of film stress, that I experienced in this film, but I still really enjoyed a lot of what this film had to offer. It is a slow burning film that reaches a boiling point, and it's a very rewarding film. I think it is pretty long. It's 2 hours and 22 minutes. So the film is an investment, and you're really you're gonna have to be in the mood for this kind of film because it's not funny, it's not darkly comic, it's a very human drama with a lot of very realistic human emotions, and it's just it's a very very good film that I would highly recommend to really almost anyone. I think it's a story that a lot of people can relate to. Anyone who suffered loss, I think, can relate to this film on some level. The loss in this film is a little bit more, the circumstances surrounding it are a bit more, a bit darker than I think most people experience loss, but it's still a film that I think can be really relatable for a lot of people. So that is Secret Sunshine. I hope my ramblings about Secret Sunshine made sense, and I hope that if you've seen the film, if you saw some of the same things in it than I saw, then let me know down below. If you saw other things that I did not see in it, or maybe just didn't mention in this video, then just leave a comment about Secret Sunshine if you've seen it. I don't know where I'm going with this. Time for the last film of the marathon. I actually know which film I'm going to be watching this time. The next film, the final film, is the one film where I was like, I think I'm going to watch this for the marathon. So without any further ado, let's start the final film of the marathon and wrap this thing up. Okay, everyone, here we are with the final film of the marathon, Kenji Mizoguchi's Sansho The Bailiff. I had never seen a Mizoguchi film before watching Sansho just now, and I am most definitely inclined to continue watching more. This is a film that I heard a lot, well, maybe not a lot about, but I just heard a lot of praise for this film, and just so many people saying that it's one of the saddest films you'll ever see. It's incredibly depressing, and it's an empowering and powerful story. And I think that all those things are true. Sansho the Bailiff was most certainly not a letdown at all, really. This film is an old story that has been told throughout years in history, I guess. I don't know all the details because I didn't get to do much research and reading about the film before watching it. I just sort of put it in with my limited knowledge on it, and here I am now in front of the camera. So if I misquote or say incorrect things about the film, please do not pull out the pitchforks. But this film is based off of an old story, and I don't know if it was a true story that was turned into like a folklore and just changed throughout time, but it essentially tells the story of a noble family, a father, a mother, and then a son and a daughter. And the father was the governor of a territory, and he sided with peasants when it came to a particular issue concerning land and wealth, and he was basically sent away. He was exiled, and his family was not able to go with him, and I guess I don't really know why. I may have missed that watching the film. But the film basically begins with the young son and daughter and the mother traveling across the country to meet up again with their father, who's been in exile for a few years. And during their travel, they get separated, they get kidnapped by bandits, the mother is taken and sold to a brothel, and the two children are sold into a sort of slave labor camp that is run by Sansho the Bailiff, and that's where the film gets the name. And I'm going to go off on a different tangent here for just a moment. The film is called Sansho the Bailiff, and he is definitely a very far-reaching, powerful, and just despicable character in this film, but he's not really in it a whole lot. And I was kind of wondering, especially by the end, when I was really thinking, I was like, our main characters don't have many interactions with Sansho, he doesn't have that much screen time, and Sansho himself isn't incredibly important to the story, so why is this film called Sansho the Bailiff? And I really don't know. Maybe that's just the name that it's been that's carried out throughout time and history. I did look in the booklet a little bit here just to just out of sheer curiosity, because I enjoyed this film quite a bit, and I was very interested in the story and where it originates from. And it looks like there are a couple of different stories about Sancho the Bailiff, and they have two of them in here. One of them being called Sancho the Steward, and another one being called An Account of the Life of the Deity of Mount Iwakai. And that's definitely a very wordy title. There are three ofs and two of thes in that story title, so I understand why they didn't go with that for the name. So Sancho the Bailiff, I guess, is a pretty good name for the film. I mean, I don't think it fully represents what the film does. I don't even know why I'm going off on this. I'm just criticizing the name for no reason. It's called Sancho the Bailiff. It's a good, catchy name. Do I think it represents everything the film does? No, I don't think it represents what the film does that much. I think it could have had a better title, but I digress. That was a stupid thing to complain about. You can ignore all of that. What was the last thing I was saying about this film before I went off into my Sancho tangent? Children are sold to Sancho as slaves, and the film is split up into two halves, essentially. One half, they are children, and it's their experiences in this slave labor camp, and then it jumps ahead 10 years to show us that they're still there, and to show us, really, that they've grown older, but their position in life hasn't really changed, but their mentalities have changed, and something that I thought was really interesting. And before I do go any further, if you haven't seen the film, I am going to talk spoilers for this for sure, without a doubt. So if you don't want spoilers, watch the film first. I'd very highly recommend it. I really loved this film. So do that and then come back if you want to keep hearing me talk about it like I am right now. In the beginning of the film, the father of these two children, the governor who has been sent into exile, tells his son a couple of things, and a couple of the things that stuck out to me are always watch over your sister, and he probably said his mother as well, which obviously didn't work out, really. And he also mentions, there's a quote, and I hope I quote it correctly. It is something along the lines of, without mercy, man is not human, because a major pillar of his father's character and his family, his morals, and the position that he wants his family to uphold is that mercy is one of the most important traits for any leader to have, and he tells his son this early on. And what I was expecting was the son to continue to hold these values and to not lose his faith and lose his resilience in the situation that he has been forced into. But it actually changes in the second half of the film after the 10-year time jump, and the daughter, Anju, is far more hopeful and optimistic about being able to escape this slavery that they're stuck in, while her brother, who was given instructions by his father to always be merciful and to watch over his sister, has kind of fallen down this very pessimistic path and has no faith in life getting any better, and he's just become a cold, hard person who is certainly not the type of person that his father would have wanted him to grow up to be. And I thought that was really interesting. I guess I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting our lead character of the son, I think his name was Zanisho. What was his name? I want to confirm. I don't want to go any further without knowing his name, so give me one moment. Zushio. Okay. So Zushio and Anju. So I expected Zushio to be a character who was going to basically hold the same beliefs throughout the entire film, and he didn't, and I thought that was kind of interesting how he had become broken down, essentially. Now, this is going to move into one of my only real complaints I had with the film, and it's really not so much a story thing, because I really loved the story that this film told. It was more of a character motivation and character shift thing. Essentially, there's a woman who they've befriended at the slave labor camp who is dying, and they are advised to bring her up to a mountain and just let her die up there. And Anju and her brother Zushio go up to this mountain, and the dog is barking. I think Best Buy is supposed to be, I'm getting a delivery from Best Buy, and the dog might be barking at UPS, so I'm going to wait for 1 second. And in this moment, while they're sort of building, not a grave, but just making their friend more comfortable in death, they have this moment that reminds them of a memory that they share together that they had while traveling to meet up with their father in the first part of the film. It involves cutting down a branch and they're going to build a little shelter. And in that moment, Anju has this idea to essentially create a distraction or a diversion so that her brother can escape. And her brother was someone who, up until that point after the 10-year jump, had changed a lot, and he didn't believe that they'd be able to escape. He wasn't interested in that at all, and he was not content, but he was almost just accepting defeat and not looking out to his future. He thought that his future had already been determined by being a slave. And just within that instant, he changed, and he had this, all of a sudden, this burst of energy and optimism. And I thought that that was a little bit sudden. It was just a little bit strange how she was able to transfer her hope so quickly to him in that moment. And then it got a little bit more complex because she said, "I can't go with you because they'll find both of us if we're together. I'll just slow you down," sort of thing. But then she asks him to take this woman who is dying, who can't move, with him. So after thinking about it and dwelling on it, I was like, okay, well, I guess she was going to go tell the guards that her brother would be back soon, and she was just stalling for him so he could grab the woman and get a head start from the guards, which is what ended up happening. It just was kind of like a weird, complicated, overly complicated, and to me, almost nonsensical escape plan that kind of came out of nowhere. But I digress. That's kind of all I really have to say about that. It just felt like the character motivation and development of that idea and those emotions from Anju and Zushio felt really quick. And that's another thing that I want to say, and this is a positive about the film, is that I felt like I could watch it for so much longer. Like, I almost wish that there was more development in the characters. Not saying that they didn't do enough, but I just personally was enjoying my time with the film so much that I felt like I could have been watching for another 30 minutes. I suppose that is just another minor gripe with the film, is that I think that some things happen a little too quickly. Spoiler, I already said I'm going to go into spoilers, but in that moment, after Zushio escapes, his sister is left there and the guards are very mad at her, and they're basically going to torture her because they know that she is in on his escape. So she kills herself, which is pretty traumatic and sad. It's a sad moment of the film. And she kills herself in the most horrible way possible, it seems. She just walks into a cold creek and drowns herself. It was a very dramatic and poetic moment of the film that I think visually was really well done and kind of beautiful in a way. But thinking of it from and this is based off of folklore, but thinking of it from a very practical standpoint, it's like, oh man, you're just gonna walk into a creek and drown yourself? That sounds terrible. I don't know who would do that, but again, this is a very poetic film. It's based off of an old story that has probably changed a lot throughout the years. I just thought it was weird, but I was like, okay, I do like how dramatic and poetic this is. So that's my one comment on that, and I'm gonna move that into the moment when a few, probably months later, Zushio realizes that his sister died that afternoon, a sacrifice for him, essentially. And I found that also to be a bit ironic because his father always said, watch over your sister and always take care of her, but then she kind of took that responsibility from him and took care of her brother. And the dog is going crazy because I think UPS is actually here now, but we're going to keep going because I know you all don't mind when the dog barks. Okay, I had to go upstairs and put a stop to the dog's barking because he was going absolutely bonkers for the UPS guy. So I lost my train of thought a little bit, but basically this all just goes back to my what I said about how I could watch so much more of this film, and I wish this moment had a little bit more weight and a little bit more time to sit with me. And it was a 30-second scene basically where Zushio goes to his sister's grave, and it's very quick. It may be even less than 30 seconds. It's so brief, and it's moments like that I wish there was just a little bit more time to let those emotions sink in. It felt brief and quick and I just wanted a little bit more. But I know in this what I'm talking about in this review, reaction, whatever you want to call this, I am nitpicking a lot and being critical of a lot of things, but that's only because I really really enjoyed watching this film so much, and they're just little things that I wish were slightly different about the film. And even saying that, it's almost making me think that I don't like this film, but I do. I really did like it, and I could have watched it for so much longer. It's absolutely beautiful. I loved the score and the camera movements and the settings too. I thought that all of the settings felt very authentic and lived in, and nothing about it felt particularly fake. I even loved the simplicity of the tree shot in the first part of the film when they're building their campsite, when the mother and her two children and their servant are putting together a meal at the campsite and building a shelter. I just loved the framing and everything about that moment, and the location all just felt so real to me. So there was just a lot that I really loved about this film. I loved the story overall and all the beats of the story, and just the span of time that it covered, and all of the different I guess lessons that are learned by the characters throughout the film. I just thought everything was so classic and so earned and so real. So I really like this film. I really have just these tiny nitpicks, and I don't want to make it sound like I don't like the film. So yeah, just don't ignore that I said all of that, but just know that I don't hold all of that stuff to heart. I don't blame the film or the filmmaking for that much at all. It's just little tiny things that I just wish would have been done just a tiny bit differently. I'm going to quit talking about it because I know I'm going to hate hearing myself say this editing. So I'm going to cut it there. Sansho The Bailiff, I really, really loved it. I would recommend it to anyone, I guess. I don't know, it's hard to classify like who I would recommend films to. Yeah, I mean, if you're watching this, or maybe if you aren't watching this because I talked about spoilers, but if you see the title of the film, you see that I talk about it and you're interested in it, do not hesitate, go out and watch it. I think it is on the Criterion Channel. I will leave a note actually for all of the films in this marathon and let you know whether or not they're on the Criterion Channel, because then that's easy access, direct access to these films, so that would be good. But that is everything for this Criterion Marathon. For all of you first-time viewers of a Criterion Marathon, I hope that it was everything that you would have ever wished and dreamed it would be. For those of you who have been clamoring and waiting for another one of these rambling sessions of mine, then I am happy to have presented you with all of this. I don't know how valuable it is. A lot of times I feel like I'm just talking sweet nothings. I'm saying literally nothing of value half the time, it feels. But if that's what you enjoy hearing, then I will continue to do so. And that's it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all three films from this marathon. There was not a dud, in my opinion, of the day. Everything was really solid, and I would suggest to all of you to watch these films if they interest you. And yeah, it was nice doing this again. I'll have to do another one again soon. Maybe not before the end of the year, but hopefully January time. I'm very loosely scheduling out my time right now. I don't think I'll have time before the year ends to do another one, because these are honestly kind of big videos, and to take a lot of editing too. They take a lot of time. Maybe that's why, another reason why I haven't done one of these for so long. But I'm happy to do more. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you all so very much for watching and continuing to support the videos by liking them and watching them. And if you did enjoy this and are not yet subscribed, then please hit that red button below me. That would be awesome to continue to have you all as an audience. And that's pretty much all I have for this video. So thanks again so much for watching. I hope to see you all again soon, and I will talk to you later.